It's Open Line Friday. Back to the phones. Toby, Idaho Falls. Great to have you, sir. Hello.
How's it going, Rush?
Good. Great to have you here.
The reason for my call was back in 1990 when I started listening, and this might help out some of the younger and newer listeners. I was trying to figure out whether I was liberal or conservative, and I had it all lumped into one thing. Once I figured out that on your show you're talking about government when you're talking about liberal versus conservative, that's when I figured out that I was conservative. And I was wondering if you could give an example, like a few things that I think you might be liberal on would be like cigars and the truth.
Well, now this is an interesting question, but we're going to have to define liberal first.
Yeah.
Why do you think...
Meaning that you think it's good.
Wait, the definition of liberal is whether it's good or bad?
To you.
Give me an example. I'm not sure I know exactly what you mean yet.
Well, like the example that I gave Snurdly was I'm liberal on maple syrup, definitely. You give me a stack of pancakes, and, well, you got to see all the maple syrup I can put
I mean,
on
you
there.
want it with no limits. You love it. No matter how dangerous people say it is or how bad it is for you, you still want it.
Yeah.
And so how is that a liberal characteristic of yours?
Well, it just seems like that's what we're talking about when we're talking about government, is if you're liberal on it, you want more of it. If you're conservative, you want less.
Yeah, but in your case, are you buying the maple syrup?
When I use it, yeah.
Well, then there's no liberalism there. There's utter self-reliance and self-responsibility. You're buying it. You're using it as you wish.
I'm just trying to differentiate. It seems like the newer listeners think that you have to be either liberal on everything or conservative on everything. But it's it depends on what you're talking about.
Okay, so you actually what you're trying to get at is, are there things that I, El Rushbo, and you, El Tobo, while we are conservatives, are there things that we do that people might say, hey, you have a little liberal in you? Is that what you mean?
Well, not if you're talking in the government sense. I don't want to be labeled liberal that way. I don't think there's much the government does right, but like I'm liberal on cigars myself, and
I love cigars, and whenever I want one, I have one. I don't care. I don't think that's liberal, though. Hang on, Toby. Don't go away. And we're back, and I want to go back to Toby in Idaho Falls. Toby, are you still with us?
I'm with you.
Okay. Now, folks, I look at everything as a teachable moment, and I may be totally misunderstanding this, but I want to spend some time here. Because right now, Toby, I'm still very confused as to your meaning and your point, and I want to understand it so that I can intelligently reply to you. You are equating, I need to ask you, are you defining the word liberal as more of and in excess or and a lot? Because you've used this example of maple syrup on your pancakes. You want a lot of it, and that is a liberal use of maple syrup. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and to somehow, because see, it took me a while when I first started listening in 1990 to catch up on politics because I was young and new to it.
Right.
To whether I was liberal or conservative. And it's a different thing whether you're talking about government or something else.
So, how do you equate because I guess you think your love of and use of maple syrup, even though you're conservative, is something that is liberal about you, right?
Oh, well, see, even though I'm liberal on it, I have zero use of it because I'm diabetic, pretty much.
Well, that's a new wrinkle. So let's stick with the hypothetical. You like it. Let's pretend you're not diabetic and you can eat as much of it as you want. I'm still trying to understand the terms here so that I can answer this. Are you defining liberal as more of it, whether it be government or maple syrup?
Yeah, well, that's the thing that you'd probably be better at than me is defining. And I'm just trying to find some way to help the newer listeners and the low information voters. It seems like they're all scared of being labeled conservative because of the media.
Okay, another new wrinkle here. You now think that you have a way of helping low-information voters understand what conservatism is, And your example of using a lot of maple syrup is an example of how we all have a little liberalism, but when there's too much government, that's bad. That's not good.
Yeah, or like truth. I mean, who wouldn't be liberal on truth? Unless, like you're a convict or somebody that needs to lie.
Well, okay, you are confusing, maybe conflating a better word. The word liberal, it has an entirely different definition in politics than it does outside of. Like the liberal use of maple syrup, in your example, has no relationship to what a political liberal is.
Yeah, and then to convolute it even more, I understand that it used to be different back in the Europe government. They had the liberals.
Yeah, I know. You still have, even today, people who think that conservatives are actually classic liberals. That's the intellectual class that says that. And in a Burkean sense, they're right, but that's going to muddy these waters even further. We don't want to go there.
That's why I'm trying to convey the idea to you, and you can ponder on it and try to, because it is, to decide if you're conservative or liberal nowadays. I could see where it could be tough for some people, because if you think you're a conservative, then you can't go out partying, and be all Hollywood.
Why can't a conservative go to a party and be all Hollywood?
Well, just because of the media and the clicks, basically.
Well, what will the media say if a conservative goes to a party?
Well, if they're a popular one, they might blacklist them, huh?
Okay, all right. We're digging a deeper hole here, and I think now where we have arrived, if I understand this, we're really talking about branding. We're talking about branding, and no longer, folks, forget maple syrup and cigars, because we're not talking about that. We're talking branding. And he's convinced that the low-information voters are no way ever going to want to be conservatives because they never party, they never go Hollywood, they never have fun, there are sticks in the mud, they tell you don't have too much maple syrup, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't have sex, don't have fun, don't make out, don't do it in the back of the car. And he does all that stuff, and he's still a conservative. Am I right, Toby? I'm right. So we got to get young people by saying you can be fun, you can have fun, you go Hollywood, you can love Miley Cyrus and still be a conservative in your politics. So it's a branding problem. And look, Toby, you've identified a problem that is a real one, and a solution to it has to be found. And that is the fact that the left owns the pop culture. They literally own it. They own movies. They own television shows. They define it. And in the process, they are the ones who are responsible for the opinion of Republicans and conservatives being basically uncool, unhip squares or nerds or what have you. And what young person wants to be any of that? They all want to be hip, and conservative isn't. So your solution, pour on the maple syrup. And people will see that you can be a little liberal as a conservative, but not be for big government and that kind of thing. Now it makes total sense. Well, Snerdley, I'm not a good no, you're wrong about that. Snerdley, he just said to me, see, they're not right, Rush, because when you go to Hollywood, look, TMZ covers you. TMZ was trying to make me look bad. TMZ was not covering me the way they cover everybody else they cover. I know, that's true, but that was just, jeez. That's when we were taxiing out. One of the local TV stations' news choppers was following us. Yes, this is true. They were hovering, and I'm sure they were shooting video. But when TMZ covers me coming out that restaurant, they're asking me questions they hope I trip up on. They're not fawning over me like they do the left. That's this guy's point. Conservative Hollywood type, they don't get fawned over. They're not portrayed as cool. They try to trip them up. They try to Mel Gibson them. They try to do anything they can. And that's his point when you get right down to it. And he says, how are young people ever going to come to our side if they're never going to be cool in the places they want to be seen? And it's actually a good question. This is why I stuck with this, folks, because if you dig deep, you eventually get to what people are really talking about, thinking, or feeling. And he's a young guy, and he wants people to understand that he's cool and he's hip, and he's not what people portray conservatives to be. And he thinks that that's going to have to happen all over the place for the Republicans to triumph. I understand that to a point. I think it'd be a mistake to think that we've got to go all in and make sure we appeal to the pop culture, low information crowd in order to succeed. I totally reject that. That is popularity. That's not success. And ideally, you would want to exist in such a way as to inspire the low information to become high information. We don't want to become them. We want them to become us. The challenge is they don't think we're cool, and it isn't going to be any fun to be us. But becoming them is not the solution. And trying to make them think that we are them, like the Democrats, that's not the solution. It's just like trying to get the Hispanic vote by agreeing to amnesty. It's not the solution. It's not the way you get the Hispanic vote. But the Republican Party doesn't get that. The Republican Party is actually trying to do what this guy wants in their own, perhaps well-intentioned but convoluted way. Anyway, Toby, I appreciate the call. And I got to take a quick break. We'll be back and continue after this. Don't go. I get one of the biggest challenges we have, folks, is making liberty and freedom cool. Ron Paul, in his so-called farewell address to Congress when he retired, said he never, ever would have believed what a tough sell freedom is. But it is because it requires self-responsibility. It requires making your own way. And liberty and freedom right now with the low information crowd, they laugh at it because they don't think it's a problem. They don't think it's under pressure. I'm convinced low information voters, by virtue of being low information, haven't the slightest idea how their freedoms are being eroded. So when they hear that we are concerned about that, they think we're just old fuddy-duddies worried about stuff, and all we want to do is control them. And of course, they couldn't be more wrong. We want them to be independent. We want them to be critical, independent thinkers, not mind-numbed robots. We want them to expand their universe and get beyond whatever Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are doing today and whatever's on TMZ and all of that stuff. It's a question of certain things right now not viewed as cool and hip.